My family.
This is the CBS Evening News. Susan Spencer reporting. Good evening. Questions raised anew today about what Vice President Bush knew and when he knew it. The subject, the drug connections of Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega. Bush has said he had seen no clear evidence that Noriega was involved in drugs until Noriega was indicted this year, and he stuck by that today despite new challenges. Jacqueline Adams reports.
The Bush for President campaign is breathing easier now that Everett Briggs, currently the U.S. ambassador to Honduras, has denied a New York Times report that he'd discussed widely circulated allegations about Panamanian strongman General Manuel Noriega's involvement in drug trafficking during a 1985 White House meeting.
We simply did not have evidence of those activities at that time. And so any statement that I did brief him on such matters at that time simply is not true.
His aides have boasted to reporters that the vice president sharply criticized Panamanian officials about laundering drug money as early as 1983 during a trip there. But Bush continues to insist that the Reagan administration had no hard evidence on Noriega himself until this February.
I can tell you for a fact certain that when it became clear, demonstrably clear, that Noriega was involved in drugs, we moved against it with an indictment.
Democrats say Bush's ignorance of Noriega's activities flies in the face of his much-vaunted foreign policy experience.
If he didn't know, that's almost as disturbing. In a sense, he was director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and General Noriega has been on the U.S. government payroll for some years.
Bush's advisors acknowledge that there may have been hundreds of thousands of cables and rumors about Noriega over the years. But those who wonder why none of it got to the vice president, one aide said, simply don't understand how this place works. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, the White House.
And there were more woes for Attorney General Edwin Meese today. The New York Daily News reported that on at least a dozen occasions, Meese accepted free airfare and lodging from nonprofit organizations, in one instance from the American Medical Association, which was awaiting a Justice Department ruling. And Washington is buzzing today, too, about the newest offbeat tidbits from former White House insider Donald Regan. Regan's Kiss and Tell memoir hits the bookstores tomorrow. Excerpts hit Time magazine today. And as Eric Engberg reports, First Family stargazing is a major topic.
As Donald Regan tells it, Nancy Reagan consulted with an astrologer she called my friend about everything from summit meetings to scheduling the president's surgery. Regan's book, as excerpted in Time, carries an unflattering portrait of a first lady who meddled in daily decisions and was so committed to astrology that the chief of staff kept a chart on his desk listing the astrologer's assessment of presidential good days in green, bad days in red. Regan says longtime Reagan aide Mike Deaver once told him, at least this astrologer is not as kooky as the last one. Regan never learned the astrologer's identity or whether the president was influenced by her. Time identifies her as Joan Quigley of San Francisco.
The one thing that comes to mind most clearly is the time that he declared that he would run for president the second time.
Regan paints a picture of a Nancy Reagan not hesitant about wielding power. When the administration was hit by the Iran-Contra scandal, Regan says the First Lady insisted William Casey be forced out as CIA chief. When Regan balked on the grounds Casey was dying in the hospital, he says she told him, "You're more interested in protecting Bill Casey than protecting Ronnie." The First Lady, says Regan, could speak with a sharp tongue. After Raisa Gorbachev lectured the president at the 1985 Geneva summit, Mrs. Reagan asked in private, "Who does that dame think she is?" Reagan, as president, never issued a direct order, never lost his temper, and hated to bother others with his problems so much he didn't evacuate his White House office even as emergency crews battled a fire next door. According to Regan, the president takes an actor's pleasure in reading his lines, hitting his marks, and checking off the items on his daily schedule as he completes them. The White House issued a statement saying vindictiveness and revenge are not worthy of comment. The statement added, Donald Regan's attempts to defame the First Lady on Mother's Day, no less, are certainly in that category. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
The bells are ringing, phone bells, on this Mother's Day, the traditional busiest telephone day of the year.
It's Mother's Day, let's celebrate.
In Los Angeles, UCLA students got into the act, singing greetings and reading poems and personal messages to moms all across the country. It was all to raise money for a college program. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, the results are in from the French elections, and later on, nannies and the professors, part of our Inside Sunday report.
This man takes vacations for a living. So he knows the best time to hit the beach. He knows which restaurants have the most to offer. And when the sun goes down, he knows just where to find just what he wants. It could happen to you right here in the U.S. So don't carry cash. Carry American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
You hear the thunder, the call of the road.
Whether it's the roar of an available turbo or 16-valve engine, Grand Am is sheer driving excitement.
Get on your Pontiac and ride,
And now, with $400 back direct from Pontiac, you can really cash in on Grand Am excitement.
Get on your Pontiac, rebuild excitement.
Listen to your mouth. That's the crunchy texture of a Triscuit. Now that's the delicious whole wheat taste of a Triscuit. Ooh. And that's the unique look of a Triscuit. They're made to take on any topping or no topping at all. Just listen to your mouth. Ah. That's the sound of a happy mouth. Triscuit. Listen to your mouth.
The socialist president of France made history today by being re-elected. His challenger was able to narrow the gap with late-breaking headlines, but it wasn't enough. Doug Tennell reports.
Francois Mitterrand became the first president of France to win a second 7-year term by popular vote today, a distinction denied to the father of modern France, Charles de Gaulle. Mitterrand won 54% of today's vote, a solid 8 percentage points ahead of conservative Prime Minister Jacques Chirac, despite a dramatic series of last-minute moves by Chirac to appeal to the nationalist sentiments of French voters. First came Wednesday's release of the last 3 French hostages in Lebanon. Then Chirac ordered French commandos in the territory of New Caledonia to rescue 23 French hostages from a cave where they were being held by a separatist group, a rescue mission in which 21 persons died. And almost before the gunsmoke cleared, Chirac's government announced that Dominique Prieur, one of the French Secret Service agents who had been confined to a remote South Sea island for her role in sinking the Greenpeace ship Rainbow Warrior, was being brought back to France. Chirac's 11th-hour bid shaved just 2 points off of Mitterrand's lead. But the presidential hopeful who made the strongest showing in this election wasn't even on today's ballot, even though he rocked the French political establishment at its roots. Extreme right-winger Jean-Marie Le Pen. He won 14.4% of the vote in the presidential primary with a platform that calls for the expulsion of foreign immigrants, a party that embraces neo-Nazi groups, and a past that includes taking the salute at a fascist rally in Italy. Le Pen forced Chirac into a delicate balancing act. Chirac needed all 4 million Le Pen votes to win, but if he moved too far to the right to get them, Chirac risked alienating voters in the center of the political spectrum. But the victory celebrations in Paris tonight are for Francois Mitterrand, who won by hardly ever mentioning socialism and sticking to the middle of the road. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Paris.
Normally, an election in Denmark is of major importance only to the Danes. But in the vote this coming Tuesday, the U.S. and its NATO allies will be keeping an anxious eye on the returns. Bill McLaughlin explains.
The snap election was called when the powerful leftist opposition demanded that the center-right government start informing all NATO warships that Danish law prohibits nuclear weapons on its soil or in its waters. Denmark never enforced the 30-year-old law to avoid a break with NATO. Denmark has been a strategic strong point of Northern Europe well before the legendary Hamlet ever walked the ramparts here at Elsinore Castle. In time of war, NATO with Denmark could bottle up the Soviet fleet out there in the Baltic. But NATO, without Denmark, could do nothing to stop the Russians. Still, Washington has warned that if Denmark starts enforcing its anti-nuclear law now, it will conflict with U.S. Navy rules.
It's a question of policy. We just don't either confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons on our ships.
Denmark is so vital that defense experts are advising the Reagan administration to cool its rhetoric and allow others to find a compromise.
I think we need to have very much a hands-off approach by the United States for some time to let the other European allies exert some influence.
Denmark's pro-American Prime Minister Poul Schluter is fighting for his political life, but with boring TV lectures on the virtues of NATO. His opponent, socialist leader Sven Auken, gives the U.S. no rest as he portrays himself as the defender of little Denmark against a big, overbearing Uncle Sam.
We think that the little guy should be entitled to speak his mind as well, even though big guys don't like what he's saying.
The nationalist, vaguely anti-American line appears popular with young Danes. Observers here believe it will be Denmark's young voters who will decide the election's outcome. It's a new generation that knows little of World War II or the Cold War, and, observers fear, is more concerned with nuclear hazards than the Soviet threat. It could be this Danish generation that votes for a future without NATO. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Copenhagen.
You went to so much trouble for me?
Not really. My Whirlpool microwave oven just
But
sort
it
of...
must have been hard to cook everything just right.
Not really.
But you watched it, kept turning the dish?
Not really. It's a Whirlpool microwave. It spreads the energy around so food cooks evenly. It even senses when a meal will be done and turns itself off.
It was that easy?
Not really. I did have to push the start button.
Really?
We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool.
I'm gonna get away. I'm gonna go somewhere. Relax. Take it easy, you know?
Where do you want to go?
Bloomingdale's.
No matter where you want to go, just call us now for our new lower fares.
My wife, every night she disappears into the bathroom. Who knows what's going on? But whatever it is, it makes her feel really good. See?
Clean away stains and freshen dentures with Efferdent every night.
Nothing should come between you and your pet. Set the Hearts 2-in-1 collar. The collar that kills fleas and ticks for 5 months. Keeps them off your pet and out of your home. Go ahead. Hug, snuggle, tickle him. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar lets you get close to your pet without getting close to fleas and ticks. If you want to hug a happier pet and have peace of mind, get the Hearts 2-in-1 collar.
Pope John Paul traveled to Uruguay's cattle-raising country today, the first full day of his Latin American tour. In an outdoor prayer service, John Paul gave his unconditional support for labor unions and workers' rights. The Pope's comments apparently were thinly veiled references to the labor crisis in his Polish homeland. In Poland, it was back to square one today at the week-long shipyard strike in Gdansk. Bert Quint reports.
What seems to be a last-minute change of heart by the regime eased the pressure on shipyard strikers, fearful that the police would move on them tonight. Negotiations with the shipyard management failed this afternoon, and authorities issued an ultimatum. Anyone who didn't leave the yard today would be prosecuted. Then word came suddenly from Warsaw that negotiations would begin anew tomorrow. This could be a sign of a serious split within the regime on how to handle this crisis. The regime only began negotiating yesterday. It offered a pay raise and forgiveness for those taking part in this illegal strike. Lech Wałęsa declared that the vital issue was still the demand that solidarity be made legal. Then the negotiations broke down. Thousands at a nearby church sent a message strikers could hear. The key word here, as in the yard, was pluralism. Solidarity says the state-sponsored unions can stay, but let us have our union too. It's been encouraged by Mikhail Gorbachev's promise of political as well as economic reform.
It's becoming evident that there can't be one without the other, and Poles, at least, are demanding that political freedom come first. Bert Quint, CBS News, Gdansk.
Israeli officials said today that Secretary of State Schultz will launch yet another Middle East peace mission early next month, following the Moscow summit. No confirmation from the State Department. Israel Radio said that Schultz has asked Prime Minister Shamir to let a controversial Palestinian-American activist stay in Israel. The Israeli Supreme Court delayed today's scheduled deportation and set a hearing for tomorrow. Bob Simon has our report.
The Israeli left has a new champion. He is Mubarak Awad, a Palestinian-American, the self-proclaimed disciple of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, a believer in nonviolent resistance. If Prime Minister Shamir has his way, Awad will be deported from Israel this week. That's why Israeli liberals are demonstrating night and day.
The government should be made aware of the fact that people in Israel do want negotiations and do not see all of the Palestinians as terrorists.
Before his arrest Thursday night, Awad was involved in organizing Palestinians in the occupied territories, getting them involved in self-help projects like building a youth center in a desolate refugee camp, complete with olive branch.
When we have our Palestinian state, then we would be able to make more olive branches everywhere, on every roof.
But the government claims that there were rocks and firebombs behind that olive branch.
Mr. Awad was one of the main brains behind the violent disturbances.
Israel's top officials didn't want to talk about the case today, but they've charged that Awad was funded by terrorist organizations, a claim which his wife Nancy Nye, a Quaker from Ohio, finds surprising.
I think the Mennonites and the Lutherans and the Presbyterians would be a bit surprised that they were being considered terrorist organizations.
The State Department has been unusually active in supporting Awad. It has filed several protests with the Israelis. More are expected. Meanwhile, Awad is appealing the decision to Israel's High Court, which has never ever reversed a deportation order. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
It's a brand new day. Now here's a special coffee to get you on your way.
It's Taster's Choice Colombian Select with half the caffeine.
Get a full cup of flavor with only half the caffeine. The kind of coffee you'll savor from all Colombian beans.
Colombian Select, rich, real coffee with half the caffeine.
A full cup of flavor, only half the caffeine.
Taster's Choice Colombian Select.
New Caffrey toothpaste decaffeinates your smile.
Coffee and tea can stain your smile, like they stain your cup.
New Caffrey gets out coffee and tea stains better than the leading toothpaste. Caffrey decaffeinates your smile every day, toothpaste or gel.
For Post Natural Bran Flakes Rue McClanahan on getting the best out of life.
Because last night I was so bad. I'm making sure I have a good morning.
Reach for the best tasting high fiber bran flake. Post Bran Flakes at their best.
The dreams of America.
Now GMAC does more than finance and lease new GM cars and trucks. We finance homes with GMAC mortgages, finance boats, and our MIC insurance helps keep dreams safe.
The dreams of America. GMAC. We're making your dreams come true. The dreams of America. GMAC.
Official sponsor of America's Dreams.
There are more opportunities for women today than ever before. There are also more challenges. Tonight on Inside Sunday, problems facing the woman of the 80s. Certainly none is more challenging and potentially more rewarding than motherhood. But there are times when that dream, too, can turn into a nightmare.
Silky Pup, Lady Lovely Locks dog.
Nancy Birchold very much wanted Allison. Delivery was normal and all was well. Until depression set in. That's not uncommon, but Nancy became psychotic.
I suffered my total psychotic break when she was 16 days old. So she was just a real tiny newborn at the time. So who's to say, you know, if I hadn't been picked up, I could have harmed myself or her.
Luckily, Nancy was hospitalized before she harmed her child. She has since learned that roughly 1 in 1,000 women suffers what she did, postpartum psychosis, not simply a case of hormonal changes causing the blues.
I have 2 dogs, 2 beautiful dogs that were my children before my baby was born. All of a sudden, they were the enemy. I could close my eyes and envision my baby in their mouth.
Melissa also found help at one of the few support groups formed recently to deal with this problem. But sometimes the system fails to catch a woman in trouble and her child can pay the price. When a new mother suffering postpartum psychosis commits a crime against her child, some experts say the illness itself should be a legal defense, as it has been in England for years.
There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that these poor women will benefit from a prison sentence.
The court system should be open to the idea that this is a type of insanity which the criminal justice system sees from time to time.
He's going to write the letter. He's got a lot of really good ideas.
Katkin's client, Glenn Comets, is about to appeal for a pardon for his wife Sharon, in prison for drowning their infant.
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. The doctors really didn't know what we were dealing with and how severe it was.
It's the insanity of distorted thinking and distorted perceptions and not understanding the consequences of your beliefs and thinking that things are different than they really are.
The hope, of course, is to reach women before there's a need for a legal defense, to explain what postpartum psychosis is and that it can be successfully treated.
I kept thinking, I'll get through this. I'll get through this. This isn't supposed to be happening.
Well, it's real important to get the education out there so that women who are going through this know that they're not alone.
Something else women go through together these days sometimes is fear. Fear of breast cancer, the #1 killer of women 30 to 50 years old. Doctors believe the disease may be in part a product of life in the 80s, but with modern times also come new answers, as Deborah Potter reports.
For the first year after the surgery, I would wake up in the night with nightmares, and it just consumed me.
Marilyn Hummer found out she had breast cancer 3 years ago and had a breast removed.
You still have in the back of your mind, did they get it all?
The latest figures from the National Cancer Institute show that breast cancer is on the rise, up 17% over a 10-year period. One possible reason, changes in women's lifestyles that increase their risk of getting the disease.
Many women are delaying their first pregnancy or not having children at all. And this is found to be epidemiologically the highest risk, besides family history, of getting a breast cancer.
Many specialists say the major reason the rate is up is that more cancers are being detected through the use of breast x-rays called mammograms.
You just have you turn in a little bit, that's fine.
Since 1980, there's been a significant increase in the number of women who have had a mammogram. It's now more than half of all women over 35. But many don't get them because they can't afford the cost, up to $260. And doctors think even more women stay away because of fear, although they say it's unjustified.
They shouldn't be afraid of what they find out, because if we can find breast cancer early, we can offer them not only cure, but we can offer them saving their breast. So really, we can give them good news.
The best news is that survival rates are up. More women are getting the disease, but with surgery and chemotherapy, they're living longer.
My recommendation to anybody is you find a lump, you immediately go to your doctor and have it taken care of. And hopefully, you'll be as lucky.
Doctors agree that early detection is the critical factor. If breast cancer is caught before it spreads, a woman's chances of living at least another 5 years are better than 90%. Deborah Potter, CBS News, Washington.
Another challenge for women today is the family, raising it and helping to support it at the same time. With more women working, there is a growing need for child care. Well, necessity is the mother of invention. John Blackstone reports on an inventive solution born of a mother's necessity.
Like the majority of mothers of her generation, Sherry Panzer works. But unlike most, she has the kind of help at home usually associated only with the English upper classes. The Panzers have a full-time nanny.
Most people do think nannies and the very rich. We're not really rich. We consider it a necessity, just like a house payment.
But an expensive necessity. A full-time nanny costs an average of $15,000 a year. Still, demand is growing in the United States, where 53% of preschool children have working mothers. To meet the demand, some 50 nanny schools have opened in the past 5 years across the country. The students, who will be much more than babysitters, learn everything from diaper changing to first aid to child psychology. Migdalia Caceres is one of only about 1,000 graduates of American nanny schools.
You feel like it's more a profession. It's nice when somebody comes up to you and say, instead of call you a babysitter, they'll say, oh, you're a nanny. Oh, that's neat. You know, you went to school for that, huh?
Still, there are no national or state standards for nanny training.
A cosmetologist in the state of California needs 1,600 hours of training before the state licenses her to go out and cut people's hair. But we don't have any requirements like that for children.
In Britain, most nannies train for more than 2 years, learning exactly the right way to do everything that has anything to do with caring for children. The shortage of such well-trained nannies in the United States has led many American families to look to Britain for help at home. But the nanny is one foreign import that is not flooding into this country.
Right now, the only way that the nanny can come over is if the employer is in the United States petitioning for that nanny and that nanny remains in England. That process can take anywhere from 2 to 2.5 years.
Too long, of course, for most families to wait. So for American women in search of a child care career, nanny schools can virtually guarantee employment. But so many career opportunities are now open to American women, there are likely always to be more working women in search of nannies than there are nannies in search of work. John Blackstone, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Nannies are, of course, beyond the reach of most working mothers, still in desperate need of affordable child care. You'll be hearing a lot more about that issue in the weeks ahead. President Reagan has asked his aides to come up with ways the federal government might help, and child care is sure to be an issue in the presidential election campaign this fall. That's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather will be here tomorrow, and later tonight, Bill Plant with the CBS Sunday Night News. I'm Susan Spencer. I'll see you next week. Good night.
It won't stop ringing. Tuesday.
When it touches my face, it hangs up.
Aww.
I don't have a problem. You got a problem.
Lots of people with phones not made by AT&T are registering some kind of complaint. When was the last time you had a complaint with an AT&T phone?
Hello? What?
Can you call me back on an AT&T phone?
You get what you pay for. AT&T, the right choice.
I just got dentures, but it hasn't slowed me down.
Sorry to be the 45. Want to hear 45? 45.
Fixodent and forget it. Fixodent helps fix loose spots for a strong hold that lasts longer than any leading cream.
Two, I hear 25. Want to hear 25? 25.
Use Fixodent and forget it.
While other airlines have prohibited smoking on flights under 2 hours, only Northwest has eliminated smoking on all flights throughout North America.
Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Northwest, Northwest, North.
He was so rude to me, and in public, too. Then he called me by another woman's name, Bambi. Who's Bambi? Do I look like a Bambi?
I'll take care of everything.
Would you?
Miss Smith will be banking with us now.
Welcome to our bank.
Members of the First Nationwide Network treat you with respect, concern, and understanding. But don't worry, you'll get used to it.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan, at home with Oscar de la Renta,
Malcolm Forbes, Carl Sagan, and Lynn Redgrave.
This week on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on Eyewitness News, neighbors in the Murfreesboro and Dickerson Road area say it will only make a dent. We'll have a report on Metro Vice officers' continuing efforts to curb prostitution. A group of female employees fight for equal pay at the checkout line. And moms on the streets may get a belated Mother's Day gift. Those stories and more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
We share the spirit of
From Nashville's news station, this is